I want to call to order the Amberley Village Council meeting of March 14, 2022. Please call the roll.
Richard Bardak. Here. Ben Hunt.
Here.
Tom Muthing.
Here.
Keely Paul.
Here.
Bob Rosen.
Here.
Natalie Wolf.
Here.
Scott Larmer.
Here.
Andrew Kakey.
Here.
Chief Wallace.
Here. And if everyone could please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everyone. It is nice to have a council meeting with people in attendance. It's been a while, and so this is and without mask. So it was, I think last summer we had a few meetings before we went back to mask. This is great. First item on the agenda is our minutes from our last regularly scheduled meeting. Those minutes were circulated in advance. Are there any comments on those minutes? Seeing none, we can consider the minutes approved. Next item on the agenda is our finance report for January, the first month of the year.
Thank you, Mayor. This will be brief since we're only discussing one particular month of 2022 so far. General fund revenues in January for the earnings tax were about $287,000. Our estimate for the year is $3.4 million, so we've got a long way to go here. But we have begun collections on earnings tax. And in the local government fund, the village did collect $6,300 from the state this past month. Total revenue for the month of January, $360,000. On the expense side, the village had a little over $500,000 of expenses in January. Our budget, our anticipated expenses for 2022 is about $6.1 million. So we've spent about 8% of the budget thus far. And that leaves us with an unencumbered general fund balance at the end of January of $5.2 million. And that concludes my report.
Are there any questions for the manager? If not, I will turn it over to the chief for recognition of Citizens of Excellence this evening.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight, as we do each year as a police department, we pick out key members of the community that have helped us, and we issue the Citizens Excellence Award for our community partnership and relationships. This year, the award's going to 3 recipients. I'm going to start with the first recipient, then I'll come back and go to the second one. The first recipient of tonight's award is actually 2. It's Adam Greenberg and Marvin Schwartz from Topics. Adam Greenberg and Marvin Schwartz their family has successfully ran their business here in the village for nearly 40 years. One of the key things they've done with the department, there's so many, it's hard to get into it, but I'll just give you a brief thing. Both of these gentlemen, along with Topics, have stepped up and supported our department in a number of ways. Just to point out one way is they assisted our department with the startup of our K-9 program. Their support and financial backing on the initial startup of this K-9 program is what helped make this successful. You know, when you're able to come to council and present the idea of doing a K-9 program, and you have a company that's been around for this many years that steps up and financially offers to support it, and they've continued to support it in so many ways, it's unbelievable. But also, with Marvin and Adam, they have been a contributor of our police department and assist us in so many ways since the early 90s with the Hamilton County Police Association, which is outside of Amberley, that covers the SWAT and dive team. They've been there for so many different things and done for our department. When we had our staff meeting, we discussed, who the recipients are. And the first 2 names that came up was Marvin and Adam. Adam is the guy that I can reach out to at any given time, run things past him. Marvin was the same way. They put a new fitness center in their building, and the first thing they did was reach out to us and invite us down there, and even invited officers to come down there and work out. You know, they'll continuously reach out to us, have meetings with us, have lunch, and just to discuss ideas of the future, how to make things better, and what we can do as a department to help them. And I think our relationship with being able to, with our alarm systems, camera systems, and the cooperation they give us and the assistance they give us helps us do our job better. So this year, the award's going to Adam Greenberg and Marvin Schwartz. So today, Adam's going to come forward, and as well as his grandmother, Marvin's sister, and she's going to accept the award on behalf of Marvin. Marvin's wife, I said sister. I have the box and stuff. I'll give it to you in a minute for the award. The next recipient for this year's award for the 2021 Citizen Award goes to Wayne Signer from Easy Pack. This is one I didn't write a speech on because Wayne and I go back pretty far. You know, Wayne has been a person, a friend to me since I've been here. You know, Wayne and I did his fire inspections when I first started here, and we became friends then, and we became neighbors. I feel like with Wayne, it's just extended family. You know, Wayne has been there for the police department in so many ways. You know, he assists us in anything we need done. I don't care if we need something printed or just need his support or come down there and do tours of the building just to learn more about the facilities. He goes over and above every time. When I was going through my leadership classes, you know, I had to pick somebody that I admired that I really had to step up and talk to, and Wayne was the first person I called. I sat there, I was supposed to do an hour interview, and I won't forget, he probably forgets, but I sat there for almost 3 hours listening to him, and what I learned was, you know, in life you learn a lot about leadership, and one thing you learn is, you know, if you can absorb from great leaders and things like that, that's the most important. With Wayne, you know, I learned so much from him just watching how he handles his personnel at work, and to know that if you keep your employees happy, they're more productive and they get more done. You know, I've read so many books on leadership, but, you know, in the Norman Schwarzkopf book, they always say, you know, he says in his book, he talks about leadership, and he talks about one thing he learned was how not to supervise, and he learned more from bad leaders than he did good leaders. But around here in the community, you know, I've been blessed with a friendship. When I became chief, he was the first person there to congratulate me. He was at my swearing in. And when I've had downtimes with my family, he's there for me. So when this award came up and Wayne's name come up, and I try not to always be the person to pick out the people. So when Wayne's name come up and I have to confirm it, it was 100%. There was no doubt that you're deserving of this award. And, you know, from being on committees in this village to doing interviews for the village to everything you've done throughout the years here is just, I can't even say enough about it. So not only within the police department, but things you've done for the village, we greatly appreciate it and truly admire it. So this year's award goes to Wayne Signer for 2021 Citizen of the Year. Thank you.
I want to just take a moment and acknowledge my two partners in the business, and that's my daughter Terry Junker. Terry, stand up, please. And my son-in-law, Barry Schwartz. They've been with me for the whole almost 31 years that we've been in Gulf Manor, or in Amberley Village, rather. We got carved out of Gulf Manor. And we recently moved another company. We're in the process now of moving it from Fairfield next door to us in Amberley. So we can do that with confidence because we get such cooperation as we added to our buildings from the staff, Scott, particularly the chief. He goes to bat for us all the time. So thank you very much, all of you, and for your friendship over the years.
Thank you. It really means a lot.
Thanks so much for all that you do, and thanks for coming this evening, and you're more than welcome to leave. You don't have to stay for the rest of this. Thank you. Hey, that's all right. Okay, we'll now move on to committee reports, and the first committee reports is the Streets, Public Utilities, and Sewers Committee.
Thank you, Mayor Muthing. I have a lengthy report this evening. I'll try to get through it as quickly as I possibly can. The first item on from the committee is Resolution 2022-6, authorizing the village manager to contract for the reconstruction of North and South Farmcrest Drive and a portion of Kincaid Road. This project has been in the works for some time. It's part of a major street reconstruction program that Council has voted on before. The reconstruction project consists of two phases. The first phase is the Greater Cincinnati Waterworks is going to tear up the street and put in a new water main, followed by a complete reconstruction of the street. We've met with the citizens. We've had a public hearing. We went over the plans, the final plans with I think there was, if I'm not mistaken, Scott, 12 families represented at the committee at the public hearing. So this has been somewhat vetted, at least to the extent that we tried. So the contract that the manager is going to enter into is to grant Ford Development the rights to do the street reconstruction. The amount of that contract is $1,478,007.75. The Greater Cincinnati Waterworks portion is being awarded to Fred Newman, which was the low bid on that portion of the contract. That portion is paid for by the Greater Cincinnati Waterworks, is not paid for by the village, but the amount of that contract is $493,658.91. In addition, because the general contractor was assigned a sub to do part of the project, that there is an assignment fee that will be paid to the village that will go to the general contractor. The amount of that assignment fee is $24,682.95. The village will be reimbursed by Greater Cincinnati Waterworks for that amount of money. So I move adoption of Resolution 2022-6.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 2022-6. 6, authorizing the village manager to enter into a contract for the reconstruction of North and South Farm Crest Drive. Are there any questions or comments?
Well, first of all, you are not kidding that this has been years and years in the making, because I was once on the Streets Committee many years ago, and I remember when resident Dr. Ken Kreines came to complain about the disrepair of his street. It was North or South Farm Crest, and it had been in such disrepair that they really needed it done years and years ago. And in 2017, Dr. Kreines passed away, and here we are still, all these years later, finally getting to be able to have the grant funding to repair these streets that are top of our list. And then, not on the other hand, but like together with this, for years and years, as long as I've been on council, we've talked about pedestrian safety here in Amberley. And in 2016, we actually passed a resolution, a pedestrian safety resolution that I asked Tammy to make available to everybody. And one of the sections, Section 5, states that whenever street and road improvements are planned, attention will be given to accommodate pedestrian and bicycle safety needs, and in keeping with current practice, any unused road and street repairs will be allocated, funds will be allocated as needed to implement pedestrian and bicycle safety. And then in November of 2019, I recalled, before we all went into hibernation for COVID, a letter signed by many, many young families on North and South Farm Crest, bringing to our attention the state of the streets being used as a cut-through, and that there were, I think they said 20 children that lived in the neighborhood, and they had what they considered a dangerous situation with traffic and for pedestrians. And so, obviously, my question is, what consideration are we giving to pedestrian safety on these roads with the repair of the actual complete renovation of North and South Farm Crest, highlighting the streets program, and specifically, I guess, that the residents there were actually making an inquiry about the feasibility of speed humps. If you read the letter that they sent, they refer to the speed humps that have been on Kincaid, where speeding has also been an issue.
There's a very good answer to that, and I'll
Okay,
either
good.
turn it over to Councilman Rosen or the village. All right, the village manager will respond to that, and I may add a few comments.
And I may have a few comments, and Councilman Hunt was also, he may be able to address these, because those issues did come up at our public hearing.
Okay, so a couple of items in relation to this. So the village embarked on this particular street improvement nearly 2 years ago after council identified funding sources, a variety of funding sources to fund street improvements throughout the village that would improve our infrastructure. So one of the first assignments to CT Consultants as it relates to Farm Crest street reconstruction is to look at it from a safety standpoint, from pedestrian safety, and what improvements could we make as part of this improvement, because this is going to be an opportunity to make the necessary improvements to improve safety for both motorists as well as pedestrians. Their analysis came back, and they proposed that 2 traffic islands be installed, one on South Farm Crest and one on North Farm Crest. And the intent of the 2 islands was to slow the traffic down. So that was where the emphasis was placed. There were considerations for speed humps, there were considerations for other types of improvements. CT consultants presented information to the Streets Committee, and this was actually before, I believe, Councilmember Rosen was on the Streets Committee and even on council, that the most effective way to improve safety on that particular street was with the islands. So we shifted our focus to the islands and had a lot of discussion internally about how those islands would look. And because there are complications with islands, it restricts parking, it causes some issues with neighbors, it creates some issues. So we internally talked about that, and then we held a Streets Committee meeting prior to the new council coming on board. And that's when that particular committee, the Streets Committee, recommended that staff meet with the residents in the Farm Crest subdivision. And so that meeting occurred in, I'm going to say in December, about mid-December. And as Councilmember Rosen referenced, we had about 12 to 14 families that were represented at that meeting and got good input and very much a vote of confidence from them that they liked the 2 traffic islands that were being proposed in that area. We have since followed up with the residents on North and South Farm Crest because one of the most critical parts of this major street reconstruction is to keep in constant contact with the residents from a contractor perspective about what is going to be occurring next. Our engineer has made us aware that there are going to be times when the residents on both of these streets will only see dirt out in front of their homes. So that's pretty severe. You don't normally have that type of a situation. If you're getting your street repaved, you see pavement, but in this situation, it's going to be taken down to the dirt. So the curbs will be taken out, the pavement will be taken out, and so it's going to be a pretty serious situation. So it's very critical that we be able to communicate to the residents on those 2 streets and also Kincaid about the status of the project. So that's sort of a synopsis of where we were at in terms of when we started the project and where we're anticipating going as this project starts next month.
And if I could just add, so when the residents came to that meeting and it was talked about whether to put in speed bumps or whether these traffic islands would be sufficient, and they agreed that, or at least at this point, that the traffic islands would be the best solution. That does not preclude us from going back. If this doesn't solve the issue to their satisfaction, we can go back in, we can always put in these speed bumps. And we're certainly open to doing that and seeing if these traffic islands have the effect that the engineers say that they will and that the residents seem to agree at the time that that would be the case. So we're certainly open to doing that.
I mean, the one thing that I was very impressed with as CT consultants and the staff have got into the detailed engineering on this project, they were very conscious all along on pedestrian safety. And they really did take into heart and to the planning the comments that were received from the residents and the concern. And in fact, at the meeting that Councilman Rosen talked about, we not only talked about speed humps, we talked about the strips and so forth. So the residents were very happy that these islands they thought were a great idea, but they were also very happy that the staff and CT recognized that we might need to do something else down the road if this is not the answer.
So, can I just follow up then? I am also very happy. I have to say, I am feeling very emotional. I want to thank you for taking everything into consideration. I mean, really, the pedestrian safety issue has been on the table at least as long, if not longer, than Farm Crest, North and South Farm Crest. So, you know, whatever it is, there's so many ways to slow down the traffic. And I appreciate you going to the residents and going to the engineers and making it a top priority. So thank you, Scott. Thank you, Streets Committee. And just, yay.
Yeah, I might add that this summer, there won't be a speeding problem on that street.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Are there any other questions or comments? If not, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 2022-6, authorizing the village manager to enter into the contract. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Be it noted that that resolution passes unanimously.
Second item from the Streets Committee is the Resolution 2022-7, authorizing the purchase of fire hydrants for the street reconstruction of North and South Farm Crest. When the Waterworks is putting in this new water line, they are insisting that we put in new fire hydrants. The village is responsible for the purchase of the fire hydrants, and so that's why this resolution is being brought before the committee. There are 20 hydrants that are going to be put in and be replaced. The hydrants that are going to come out of this project are going to be sort of mothballed, and we're going to be using them for parts and maintenance of other fire hydrants around the village. The total cost of the 20 fire hydrants is $36,804.18. That makes them $1,752.58 each. We are purchasing these fire hydrants through Hamilton County's contract. Wes Brown, I don't know what his exact title is. Zoning and Project, yeah. Came before the committee and said that since the county has this contract, that is the most cost-efficient way in order to do this. And so committee is recommending that we authorize the purchase of these 20 fire hydrants.
Second. Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 2022-7, which would authorize the purchase of fire hydrants for the street construction projects on North and South Farm Crest, as well as the other projects that we'll undertake in 2022. Are there any questions or comments? If not, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 2022-7. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Be it noted that that resolution passes unanimously.
Third item on the Street Committee's report is Resolution 2022-8, authorizing the city manager enter into a contract for village mowing services. This contract was put out for bid. There are three parts to this contract. Part A is for the grounds around the city building, including the ball fields here. Part B is Amberley Green, and Part C is the north side and right-of-ways. In presenting this to the committee, Mr. Chesley indicated that there was some issues over the past year with particularly the mowing of Amberley Green, and this contract is meant to at least sort of mitigate some of the issues that happened in the past. This contract calls for the cutting of these particular, each of these A, B, and C areas 32 times a year, where previous contracts have called for only cutting them 16 times a year. When these contracts went out for bid, two parties entered the bidding process, but in each case, we only got one bid for each section. So for Section A, we have Fredericks was the only bid. That's for the municipal grounds and the ball fields around the city building. That contract is for $768.64 per cut. Contract B is for Amberley Green. The only bidder on that contract was Emmis Construction, and that is for $1,545 per cut. And the third one is the north side and right-of-way, and I'm going to have to find that in my notes here. Just bear with me for 1 second. That's for $515.55 per cut. So I move for the adoption of Resolution 2022-8.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 2022-8, authorizing the village manager to enter into these two contracts for the mowing services. Are there any questions or comments? Councilman Rosen, just one clarification. You mentioned the 16 cuts. The 16 cuts was for Amberley Green.
Correct.
And the Village Hall property was 28 cuts.
Okay.
So,
Thank you for that correction.
Do the baseball fields require some sort of, bear in mind that I'm 100% ignorant, require some sort of special cutting?
the
Baseball fields.
the baseball fields, we drag the field, and we do that.
So there's no part of the field that is grass?
No, there was some talk at one point of having a portion of the infield have grass on it. And in fact, when the field was first put in, the upper field did have grass in it. But when we redid the field 3 years ago, we took the grass out. And so we do the dragging of the fields internally, but the cutting of all the grass is done by a contractor.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? If not, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 2022-8. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Be it noted that that resolution passes unanimously.
Mr. Mayor, Mayor Muthing, the final resolution from my committee is Resolution 2022-9. It's granting ODOT, the Ohio Department of Transportation, approval to work in the right-of-way on, it's Cross County, right? Ronald Reagan, I'm sorry, Ronald Reagan Highway. For some reason, which I can't figure out, since ODOT maintains the road anyway, they want approval from our council authorizing them to do so. And I'm assume it's some kind of a government thing that is not particularly knowledgeable to people who have any kind of normal sense. Anyway, political comments aside, Resolution 2022-9 grants Amberley Village's approval for ODOT to maintain the right-of-way within the village of Ronald Reagan Highway. This means that they remove the snow, they take care of any repairs, and that sort of thing.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 2022-9, which would give council's approval to enter into this contract. Go for it.
Has ODOT always been responsible for all of the maintenance of this particular part of Ronald Reagan?
Yes.
And
We've had it, they indicated that there probably is an agreement on file between the village and ODOT. Probably was done numerous years ago.
so if, for example, I notice like tall grass and weeds at an unattractive appearance at the exit or the entrance ramps, that's on ODOT. That's not something Amberley could ever address?
Yes and no. So it is ODOT's responsibility, but a few years ago, we asked ODOT if we could take over that responsibility of mowing at the entrance and exit ramps.
Entrance and exit ramps only.
Right, I could be wrong, I mean, but I did remember this letter, so I do remember weird things. But did we ever discuss, and this could have been in the Environmental Stewardship Committee, how those entrance and exit ramps just do not scream Amberley to me? I mean, they're very, stark, they're very ODOT. They're, other communities' entrance and exit ramps off of cross counties sometimes have a nice sign or flowers or something more welcoming to the community. Did we not ever talk about that? And again, it could have been in an ESC committee.
I believe that it was probably discussed in a committee meeting. I know from a village standpoint, we've never designated funds for that. There was planning at one point in time for gateways into the village.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yes, but that was never funded. Those are typically big dollar items that we do not have at our disposal. But I know it's been discussed, but not funded, yes.
Got it. Thanks.
And if I'm not mistaken, the reason we took over the cutting was because it could, I think we give it more attention than ODOT would.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 2022-9. All in favor? Opposed? Be it noted that that resolution passes unanimously.
And Mayor Muthing, I think that finishes my report for this month.
You did great.
Thank you. It took a
Okay.
lot of practice.
We'll turn it over, go on to the Public Buildings and Parks Committee.
Thank you. I want to first say thank you to everyone who stuck around after the picture taking last week to attend the Public Buildings and Parks Committee meeting. We actually made quite a showing, and I know we startled Frank with the fact that all the gentlemen had ties on, and he in his flannel shirt felt woefully out of place. But it was really great that not everybody, but so many people stuck around. As I'm new to the committee, it was great to have such a wealth of information and knowledge backing me up. So we met last week, the Public Buildings and Parks Committee, and we were doing it to explore project ideas for Amberley Parks. We don't currently have any projects in play that I'm aware of. CT Consultants attended the meeting, and they brought information on how we seek grant funding and an overview of the grant process from a very top line, from how big grants are to the complexity of the process, as well as things like the depth of the competition. So I felt that they did a really excellent job of introducing us to grants. We agreed that our parks and green spaces are very valuable to our community, but that we have a lot of open questions regarding Amberley Green, which makes project planning more than challenging at this point in time. So we focused on the tennis and baseball field area at Ridge and Section, and Natalie Wolf mentioned that there is approximately $3.5 thousand in funding remaining in a past We Thrive grant. And we might be able to match that funding with the cost of an additional piece of parkour equipment. So there are currently 3 pieces of parkour equipment. Yes? There are currently 4? Oh, I apologize. So there are currently 4 pieces of equipment, and it would be nice, since they get a lot of usage, if we could add a 5th piece. So we're going to explore some very top-line ballpark pricing on some small projects, not because we're ready to implement, but so that we would have that information on hand for reference later. And we're going to explore the parkour equipment for the manufacturer of the existing equipment, as well as the cost of acquiring an additional piece, which would bring us to 5. I apologize. So that was what happened last week. And again, thank you so much, everyone who was there. Natalie, it was just a blessing to have you there.
Okay, are there any questions for Councilwoman Paul? Well, thank you very much. Great report. Okay, we'll now move on to the Law Committee.
The Law Committee met on March 8th and reviewed legal expenses incurred by the village over the past several months, and actually legal expenses have declined over that period of time. The Law Committee also reviewed the property maintenance code enforcement for the 2022 calendar year, The village recently adopted a policy of calling a resident with a property code maintenance issue before actually sending out a notice via certified mail, and that new policy has been effective. The village is currently enforcing the property maintenance code by having all complaints assigned to Carolyn Wallace, who then assigns the complaint to an officer for investigation, and the village will continue to communicate with residents regarding proactive property maintenance enforcement. And that concludes my report.
Are there any questions? Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. The first item under the manager's report is Resolution 2022-10, approving participation in Region 2 governance structure for the Hamilton County region related to the One Ohio Plan. So to give you a little bit of background on this, last summer, the Ohio Attorney General announced that Ohio had reached an agreement with drug distributors and drug makers, and this all circles around the opioid issue that has decimated Ohio and many other states. So the settlement was reached, and Council in August of 2021 adopted a resolution accepting the terms of that particular agreement. It's referred to as One Ohio Plan. So what is before you this evening with Resolution 2022-10 is the regional governance structure to allocate funds throughout this particular region. We're in Region 2 of Hamilton County. So Hamilton County has taken the initiative and has asked that the local governments approve this memorandum of understanding, which outlines the various committee structure that will oversee the allocation of dollars from the opioid settlement. Keep in mind, this goes on for the next 18 years in terms of the dollars that will be distributed. It's a significant $26 billion during this is the settlement for the entire state of Ohio. But part of that will be coming to Hamilton County. So what you're being asked to do with Resolution 2022-10 is to approve the structure of the Region 2 for the One Ohio Memorandum of Understanding. So a motion for that is in order at this time.
Well, so moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve Resolution 2022-10, which would approve our participation, approve the memorandum of understanding for our participation in the regional governance structure. Are there any questions or comments?
Scott, do we have any estimate as to what we would receive over a period of time at this point?
The village itself will not receive a significant amount of money because it's going to be based primarily, I would think, on population, and certainly we've not had this issue has not been prevalent throughout the village. We certainly have had cases of it, but I don't expect much money to be coming in our direction. But it will be allocated specifically for efforts to combat the whole addiction issue. And keep in mind that one thing that may change that is with our employment of Tom Fallon, who is the commander of the heroin task force. He will have a say in the allocation of those funds, and will certainly be looking out for the village's best interest because this is intended to try to repair and to make better the situation. So those funds, you can see from the structure that is proposed, it's very broad in terms of folks having a say in how the monies are to be allocated. So certainly Mr. Fallon will be looking out for the village's best interest. But to answer your question, I don't expect a significant amount of money coming through the village.
But it is accurate to say that Lieutenant Fallon, just all the great work he has done, reflects very well on the village and the fact that he's a village employee. So.
Yes.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 2022-10. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Be it noted that that resolution passes unanimously.
The second item under the village manager's report is what is referred to as the codification. So for our newer council members, this is maybe a little bizarre, but this is a process where we are codifying the action that council has taken over the last year and putting it into a codification basis so that residents or anybody who's visiting our website or looking at our laws and resolutions would know what we have done over the last year. It also incorporates any changes that have been made at the state of Ohio level that affect villages, and that might be something that's a police item or in terms of traffic fines or something like that. So this is a process the village goes through typically each year, and we capture all that information. A company puts this all together for us. It's called American Legal Publishing, and they put this together for us, and we used to distribute green books that would have the hard copies. I don't think council members are sad that they no longer have those hard copies in front of them, but it's now all online and it makes it much more accessible. But it is very critical to our operations to have a codification to know what is current with our codes. So what you're being asked to do tonight is to approve that you've already adopted all of these items and that you're satisfied with the codification process. And it is an ordinance, and so it does require 3 readings unless you want to waive the 3 readings. It is not necessary to adopt it as an emergency clause. It can go into effect 45 days thereafter, and there will not be an effect one way or the other. So ordinance 2022-1 is ready for a motion by council to either waive the 3 readings or moving for adoption.
I move to waive the 3 readings. To me, it seems like it makes sense.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we waive the 3 readings with respect to ordinance 2022-1, which adopts and enacts the supplement to our code of ordinances. Are there any questions or comments?
So by waiving the 3 readings, we will need to pass this as an emergency?
No.
Or not?
No, by waiving the 3 ordinances normally need 3 readings, so
Right.
that would mean 3 meetings. So by waiving the 3 readings, we can pass the ordinance this evening, but we're not going to pass it as an emergency measure. The emergency measure is not appropriate in this case.
Agree.
By passing it this evening, it will go into effect 45 days from now, whereas the emergency measure would allow it to go into immediate effect.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we waive the 3 readings with respect to ordinance 2022-1. Are there any other comments or questions? If not, it's been moved and seconded that we waive the 3 readings with respect to ordinance 2022-1. Please call the roll.
Richard Bardak.
Yes.
Ben Hunt.
Yes.
Tom Muthing.
Yes.
Keely Paul.
Yes.
Bob Rosen.
Yes.
Natalie Wolf.
Yes.
And then go ahead and move that we pass 2022-1.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we approve ordinance 2022-1, adopting and enacting a supplement to the Code of Ordinances. Are there any questions or comments? If not, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance 2022-1. Please call the roll.
Richard Bardak. Ben Hunt.
Yes.
Tom Muthing.
Yes.
Keely Paul.
Yes.
Bob Rosen.
Yes.
Natalie Wolf.
Yes.
Thank you. The next item for the village manager report, I've chosen 3 items to highlight. The print newsletter, which the village looks forward to getting in residents' mailboxes twice a year. That should be delivered to residents late next week. So they should start seeing it in the mailbox next week. So the topics are quite a variety. It was a quite lengthy newsletter. And Tammy Reesner did a great job of pulling that all together. So looking forward to getting that information out to the residents. The second item I wanted to mention is an award that the village has received, a publication called Ohio Business, recognized the village for a couple of cost-saving measures. One of them was the purchase of a mini excavator about 2 years ago. The village purchased that with grant dollars. It was a grant opportunity that we pursued, where we had an opportunity to take advantage of that at our compost facility at the north site. Then we've also had other uses with that mini excavator. So that was one of the items that was highlighted. And the second item that this particular publication recognized was this most recent arrangement the Village Council approved with the sharing of the boom arm mower with Sims Township. So that was submitted to the Ohio Business Magazine. They picked up on that and were very appreciative of us sharing that information, and consequently they awarded an Ohio Success Award to Amberley Village. So we are profiled in the magazine, and quite proud that we are in receipt of that. And the third item I wanted to highlight is that next month, on April the 28th, we are holding an open house for the police department. This is going to be held in the firehouse. So this is an open house for folks, residents, to come and meet and greet our officers, as well as inform them of our services. So it's an opportunity, since COVID has been here, it's an opportunity to get back together with residents and just let them get to know the officers that serve and protect here in the village. So we're working on different items that will occur. So I'd encourage you to put that on your calendar. That'll be on April the 28th, which is a Thursday. And we'll actually be doing 2 different sessions. We'll be doing one from 1 to 3 p.m. and then one from 7 to 9 p.m. So we can capture 2 different audiences on that particular date. And that concludes my report.
Are there any questions for the manager?
I have a question. April 28th has a Jewish holiday, which I cannot say. I cannot pronounce. Do you want me to try to fake it though? It's Yom HaShoah. Good. Not good, but thank you for confirming. Okay.
It commemorates.
Oh, goodness.
Any other questions for the manager? All right, Chief?
Yeah, just so you know, I checked on those dates. I called the rabbi and stuff when I selected that date just to confirm. I just want to kind of go over the training. As everyone knows, we kind of changed some things around in the police department. We have a training supervisor again this year. The previous year it was Brennan Gehring. This year it's Sergeant Koenig. I just want to kind of touch on the training that we do on a monthly basis, just to give everybody an idea of actually all the training that stuff that goes on. So this year we have mandates by this state on a certain number of training hours. But so this will give you an idea on for OPATA online training. So far this year, our first assignment, they did deadly force and use of deadly force and BCI lethal force. Both of those were an hour long. In our next session, we did legal updates on hazing, new criminal law charges, Ohio public law, and use of restraints. Every officer in February is required to do a 4-hour mandatory diversity training. We had to do on our lexic poll when we bought our new software program for our policy and procedure manual. It was kind of taking the place of what we did with our accreditation. So now with Lexipol, in the month of February, there was 10 DBTs, or daily training bulletins, that are put out, where the officer has to read the article, pick information out of that article, and then answer a series of questions. And you do have to pass it to be able to go on. We did some hands-on training with Alice training. That was put on for the administration and the administration and maintenance department. And then we typically do our read initial, but also we're trying to focus a lot on our fire training as well. So on our online fire training with our 24/7, it's a program we pay for to do. We did a total of 2 hours, and that involved pump operations and driver operations. And then we also did an SCBA drill where guys had to wear the turnout gear and climb over ladders and go through windows and stuff on the front of the hose tower. And then lastly, as we continue to work toward our progression planning, 4 supervisors attended the PELC alumni refresher. We have 2 supervisors currently in CLE, which is Certified Law Enforcement Executive Training, and we still have 1 officer that's going in. Actually, he'll be in his final month of Police Executive Leadership class. So we're trying to move forward with the training. Obviously, the progression planning is one of our top priorities, but when we're doing that, we're trying to keep focus on the younger officers too, because it's very important that we keep them trained to where we need them, but also, the supervisors are able to take over and keep the department moving forward. That concludes my report.
Any questions for the chief?
Chief, any news about the levy that we should know about?
No, we're actively working actively with a few residents for the open house. We're going to kind of do a series of things at the open house, and obviously we want council, anybody can attend. It'll be set up there'll actually be a movie type thing where there'll be a number of residents, judges, different people that are going to be interviewed, and we'll play a video of all these different people speaking on their interactions with the police department and stuff. And as much as we talk about the levy, as important as the levy is to us in the village, we're keeping that in the forefront, but at the same time, we have a lot of new officers, and we really got to focus on maintaining relationships. When we start losing senior officers and retirements and stuff, we kind of start losing relationships. So the hopes are to have a lot of officers attend these events. We'll have tables set up for dispatch and police and fire, and we'll invite Reading EMS there, just to appeal to residents can walk through and get to know the people they talk to on the phones when they call in here, as well as the officers that are on the street. So with that, we hope that, obviously we continue to get the support we get from the community, which would help us with the levy as well.
I mean, the one thing on the levy, May 3rd is still up in the air a little bit, but we have been, we know it's now issue number 6. So we at least now have a number that we can at least talk to. Any other questions for the chief? Not, we'll move on to the mayor's report. I have a few items. Environmental Stewardship Committee, next meeting is 2 weeks from this evening, March 28th, at 7 o'clock down in the community room. 2 upcoming events. One Stop Drop will occur on May 1st. We did hold a One Stop Drop last September. It's traditionally been held early in the spring. The Environmental Stewardship Committee wanted to get back on that kind of timetable, but felt waiting for 18 months to do that wouldn't have made sense. So there will be a one-stop drop on May 1st. It will have the traditional items of the electronics recycling, safe paper shredding, and Goodwill will again be at the site. And then the forced bathing, which was a hot item last year. There will be another forced bathing session held on April 10th. This is, again, it's an activity where people are taught on going out into the forest and being able to, it's not meditation, but it leads to better relaxation, et cetera. And so I think Tammy is probably working with Mary Stillpass, if not Mary, will be working with to get the advertisement out on that. I think it's open to a dozen people. And last year it was being held at French Park. I think it's going to be held at Spring Grove Cemetery this year because there was concern with it being April, and I can attest to this. The paths in French Park can be a little muddy, and they are muddy right now. Next item, we over the last couple meetings have addressed the appointment of some of our commissions, et cetera. One thing that we did not do is we have a tax board of review. The tax board of review has never met. at least in the last 10 years. I'm not going to say it has never met. What the tax board of review would do if it ever met is if we had a tax case that was contested by a resident, the board of review would meet. But Judy Barron, who has served on the tax board of review and is willing to continue to serve on the board of review, her term is up, but I would like to move that we appoint Judy Barron to, that is, Scott, term of the tax board of review is 2 years. So to a 2-year term for the tax board of review. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we appoint Judy Barron to a 2-year term on the tax board of review. Are there any questions or comments? If not, it's been moved and seconded that we appoint Judy Barron to a 2-year term on the tax
Tom.
board of review.
I have a question.
Yep.
With the change in the City of Cincinnati tax rate, but not a change in our tax rate, are we anticipating any commotion?
Yeah, no, we do expect, I mean, and the finance committee has been tracking this, is that because the city of Cincinnati's rate is now 1.8 and our residents, and our rate is 2, residents that work in the city of Cincinnati, who previously, when the city of Cincinnati's rate was 2.1, we give a full credit for that. They basically paid nothing to Amberley. Now they will pay 0.2.
And Judy?
Judy Barron.
Is aware of this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, because I feel like they've not met, but we may now suddenly,
But the tax board of review, I mean, the most important person with respect to that rate is Jenny West, our tax administrator, who is very aware of that. The tax board of review would only meet as if, because Jenny would normally meet with the residents to go over that. And, you know, I think it's a testament to the great work of our tax administrator. Previously, it was Kathy Harcourt, that we have not had cases that needed to go to the tax board of review. So it's only if they can't come to a resolution on their own that you would need to go to the tax board of review. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we appoint Judy Barron to the tax board of review. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Being noted that that is approved unanimously. The next thing I want to mention, and this is one of the vice mayor's favorite annual things, I will be attending tomorrow the District Advisory Council of the Board of Health. It's a Zoom meeting. The Board of Health basically provides Amberley Village our health services. All communities are required to have health services provided. In the state of Ohio, all villages and townships are required to get those services from their county board of health. So we get that from that. Cities are allowed to elect whether they get those on their own or whether they contract with the county. In the case of Hamilton County, all but 3 cities do use the Hamilton County Board of Health. Norwood, the city of Cincinnati, and Springdale have their own. But, you know, over the last, I think, 5 years, St. Bernard St. Bernard was a city then. It has since become a village, but even when they were a city, they elected to go with Hamilton County. And Sharonville has elected to go with the county. The County Board of Health does an outstanding job for us. And for the cost charged to us is slightly less than $12,000, and it has stayed the same amount and will stay the same amount for 2023. So, you know, it's a great thing. This annual meeting of the District Advisory Council does appointments of the board and things like that, but also just gives kind of an update on what's going on. I'm sure a lot of this will be about the pandemic, and I will report council what I hear at the next meeting. Huh? And that concludes my report. Are there any questions? Is there any new business?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to, on behalf of the American Jewish Committee, invite all of council to the 2022 AJC Community Intergroup Seder. The AJC sponsors this Seder for the community every year, and I've been going for the last, I don't know how many years, and occasionally bringing along other members of council with me. It's open to the community, and you'll usually find a smattering of other elected officials and local organizations and high school groups attending the Seder. And so I'll just read you the little blurb. The American Jewish Committee will celebrate Passover, the Festival of Freedom, at its 28th annual Community Intergroup Seder. AJC is an organization dedicated to global Jewish advocacy and will host dozens of people from different religious and ethnic backgrounds as they come together to commemorate Passover, the Festival of Freedom. And Rabbi Matthew Krause, from Amberley Village and a member of the Human Rights Commission, will officiate at this event this year. And in fact, I think he's officiated at every year when I have attended. I have sent Scott the information to send along the invitation from the Eventbrite, and there's a small cost, it says $8 to $18, so I guess, I don't know, depends if you're a student or an adult, probably. But it would be great if we could get any number of Amberley Council to attend and sit at the same table together. And just like our at-home Seders, it's a participation event. If you've never been to a Seder, you get a little taste. Oh, I'm sorry. It is Wednesday, April 6th from 11:45 to 1:15. And in my experience is it does end on time.
Okay, any other new business? If not, we can consider the meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.